HOA Karen built a fence on my property, so I bought the only road leading to her house. Can someone really steal a piece of your land and then act like you're the problem? That's the question that had been circling my mind ever since I noticed the fence. Not just any fence, a thick, expensive privacy wall made of dark cedar, would that cut right through the edge of my pasture like a knife. No warning. No courtesy knock. Just one morning, I woke up and saw it slicing across my land like it had always belonged there. Didn't. I'm Henry Maddox. Been living in the same quiet countryside outside Asheville, North Carolina for 42 years. Retired firefighter, proud grandfather, and owner of a small goat rescue farm that's brought joy to half the county's kids on field trips. My land might not be flashy, but it's mine, and every inch was paid for with sweat and honest work. So when that fence appeared, my gut told me exactly who was behind it. Karen Delaney. She moved into the neighborhood 3 years ago and immediately took over the HOA, even though her place sat at the edge of our loosely organized rural community. Her manicured yard, aggressive newsletters, and endless complaints about unsightly livestock smells made her infamous within months. At first, I chalked it up to city folk syndrome. But then came the anonymous complaints to animal control. Then the surveillance drone that accidentally hovered over my barn. And now this fence bold, illegal, and planted 10 feet into my land. I didn't want to fight. I walked over calmly the next day, knocked on her pristine blue door, and tried to settle things like neighbors. She opened the door with that trademark expression, eyebrows raised in permanent judgment. "Oh, you?" she said flatly, arms crossed. "Are you here to complain about the fence?" "Karen," I said, choosing my words carefully, "I think there's been a mistake. That fence cuts into my lot about 10 feet. I have the deed and land survey." "No mistake," she interrupted, shrugging. "My realtor confirmed this land belongs to my property line. Your goats have been trespassing." I blinked. "Karen, I raised those goats. They know every corner of this land. I'm not here to debate goat behavior, Henry. If you have an issue, take it to the HOA. You are the HOA, I said, voice finally rising. "Exactly," she smiled sweetly, "and I've approved it." Over the next week, I tried everything, calls to the county assessor, land records office, even a real estate attorney. Every official I spoke to confirmed what I already knew. The fence was absolutely on my land. Still, Karen ignored every message. The fence remained. And the worst part? She installed security cameras facing my pasture. She wanted me to dare to do something about it. But then something unexpected happened. My grandson Jonah, a 22-year-old business major home for the summer, walked into my workshop one evening with a plan. "Grandpa," he said, grinning, "you want to beat Karen? Let's go full chessboard." "What are you talking about?" "She's trying to play power games. But you own leverage, literally. Look at this map." He laid out a topographical map from the county's public records. "Karen's house sits on that little hill, right?" I nodded. "And what's this narrow strip of land here?" "That's Old County Road 18. Dead ends at her place. Been unused since the main road was repaved." Jonah tapped the paper. "It's for sale. The whole 300-foot stretch. County's looking to offload it. No one ever drives it. But if you buy it," my eyes widened, "I control the only way in or out of her house." Within 48 hours, we submitted the paperwork. Karen didn't even see it coming. A week later, she tried to drive to a garden club brunch. But now there was a brand new gate across the old road. A legal gate, with a heavy-duty lock. She slammed on her brakes so hard she knocked her latte over. I was already walking up the gravel with the deed in hand. "What the hell is this, Henry?" "I bought the road, Karen." You can't do that." "Sure I can. County was auctioning it. It's private property now. My private property. I am the road owner." I smiled. "And there's no rule that says I have to let you cross my land." She stammered, shrieked, threatened lawsuits. But I just walked away, quietly installing a security sign and motion sensor. By nightfall, Karen had parked her Lexus at the bottom of the hill and was dragging groceries up in heels, cursing the rocks. But that wasn't the end. By day 3, the neighborhood was buzzing. It started with murmurs, neighbors pausing their morning walks to gawk at the padlocked gate. Then came the texts, the porch whispers, and finally, the Facebook post from a local group titled, "Justice for Henry." Photos of Karen dragging bins up the road in wedge sandals went viral in our tiny town overnight. And while I didn't intend for it to become a spectacle, I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel a little good. But Karen, she wasn't done. That Saturday night, just past midnight, I was woken up by an odd sound. Not coyotes, not raccoons in the barn. No metallic clinks, quick footsteps, and the faint hum of a battery-powered tool. I peeked through my window, heart thudding. There she was, Karen, wearing all black, crouched by the gate, a bolt cutter in hand. Her luxury SUV's headlights were off, but the dome light inside glowed faintly behind her. She was trying to break in. I grabbed my phone and started recording. Not just her shadowy outline, but her actual voice, clear as day. "Let's see you try and block me now, you old goat." Then snap. The sound of metal giving in. The chain dropped to the ground. But just as she pushed the gate open, a second pair of headlights lit up the road behind her. Deputy Monroe. Turns out Jonah had set up a motion detector linked to my phone and the sheriff's office, part of a community safety program he'd worked on in college. The moment she stepped foot on the private road, the system pinged. Karen froze like a deer in floodlights. "Ma'am," Deputy Monroe called out from his cruiser. "Put the tool down. Step away from the gate." "Two was locked out of my own home," she stammered. "That's a private road, ma'am. That man right there owns it." I stepped out of the shadows then, phone still recording. Her eyes darted from me to the deputy. "This is harassment. He's punishing me because I enforced HOA regulations." Monroe calmly took the bolt cutter from her hand. "Cutting through a private gate is destruction of property, ma'am. You'll need to come with me tonight." She shrieked, demanded to see a judge, claimed Monroe was just another goat lover. But the cuffs clicked anyway. And just like that, Karen spent the night in county lockup. Not that I celebrated, okay, maybe a little. The twist came Monday morning. I received a call from a woman named Eleanor Bryant. Soft voice, polite tone. Said she used to live in a small town in Oregon. Said she recognized Karen's name. "I saw the Facebook post. That's her. Karen Delaney. But that's not her real name. She changed it." Eleanor explained that Karen had once run an HOA in their town. "She nearly destroyed our community," she said, voice trembling. "She used fines and fake citations to bully older residents out of their homes." "Did she face any legal consequences?" I asked. "She vanished before they could serve her with papers. Changed her name, moved across the country." My blood chilled. But Eleanor wasn't done. She had copies of the lawsuits, testimonials from a half-dozen elderly residents, and most shockingly a recorded deposition from a former assistant who admitted Karen faked documents to seize property lines. Jonah's eyes lit up as he read through everything. This is gold, Grandpa. We compiled it all: Karen's sabotage attempt, Eleanor's files, and a certified survey from the county into a thick dossier. Then we handed it to the local DA. By the time Karen showed up for her hearing on the trespassing charge, she walked in smug as ever, wearing pearls and designer heels. She left in tears. The judge not only upheld the charge but added property destruction and attempted fraud to the case. The surveyor's testimony sealed it. But there was one last surprise. As Karen stood before the court, face pale and makeup smudged, Eleanor walked in person, and in front of the entire courtroom, she read a letter detailing what Karen did to her late husband. The tears in her voice silenced even the reporters in the back row. Karen couldn't even look at her. By the end of the hearing, the judge issued a restraining order, heavy fines, and recommended the county pursue a civil fraud case. But the real blow came when the HOA board, yes, her own allies, voted to remove her that very night. The fallout was quick and brutal. Her so-called friends cut her off. Her fancy gardening club disinvited her. Realtors stopped returning her calls. Even her lawn care company posted a public statement distancing themselves. Karen tried to spin the story online claimed she was a victim of rural mob justice. But the footage didn't lie. Neither did the court records. And me? I unlocked the gate. Eventually. But not for her. I let the fire department in when her pipes burst that winter. I let the ambulance through when she slipped on her icy steps. Because I'm not like her. But I never rebuilt that part of the fence. I left the boundary line open and added a new sign. Respect is earned, not taken. The weeks that followed were strangely quiet. No more complaint slips. No letters in plastic sleeves tacked to my gate. No HOA meeting minutes mysteriously skewed in her favor. It was as if Karen had evaporated. But that's not the truth. The truth is far less dramatic and far more human. Karen stayed in that big, lonely house up on the hill. I'd see her silhouette now and then, a lone figure by the window. Once, I spotted her at the grocery store, hair unkempt, pushing a half-empty cart and avoiding eye contact. The pride had drained from her like water through cracked glass. But what struck me most was the silence. The same woman who once stormed through our community with the force of a bulldozer now didn't even raise her voice at the register. Justice had been served. But that's when the real story changed. One foggy morning, a white envelope arrived in my mailbox. No stamp, no return address, just my name, scrawled in tight cursive. Inside was a letter signed by Karen. It wasn't an apology. Not exactly. But it was an admission. I never meant for things to go that far. I thought if I made things look right, neat, controlled, then maybe the chaos wouldn't catch up to me. Maybe I could finally breathe. I watched my mother lose everything because she didn't stand her ground. So I swore I'd never be weak. But I crossed a line with you, and you showed me exactly what it costs. You won. I lost. But I'm more afraid of the quiet than the war. For a long while, I just stood on the porch, staring at that last sentence. The anger I'd carried, the resentment I had for what she tried to take from me started to bend, just a little, into something more complicated. Not sympathy, not forgiveness, but maybe understanding. Then came Mrs. Delgado. She was a retired teacher who'd kept mostly to herself since her husband passed. She showed up on my porch one afternoon with a jar of peach jam and a story. She once fined me $200 for hanging wind chimes, she said with a chuckle. Claimed they violated oral tranquility standards. Can you believe that? We laughed, but her eyes held something heavier. She told me once, when we were both leaving the post office, it's not about you, you know? It's about the silence. It echoes too loud if I don't fill it. That phrase stuck with me. Maybe that was the thread running through all of Karen's chaos, the fences, the rules, the power plays. Maybe they were just desperate noise to drown out whatever haunted her. Still doesn't excuse what she did. But it made it clearer. The neighborhood, for its part, moved on quickly. Jonah went back to college that fall, but not before helping install a proper boundary fence, one with solar lights and a welcome sign for the goat sanctuary. Eleanor Bryant stayed a while longer, even helped organize a small community potluck where she finally met the people Karen once tried to divide. Felt like healing. The HOA was restructured. Term limits were added. Transparency rules passed. People smiled more on their walks. And Karen? She remained on her hill. Alone mostly, but not invisible. Sometimes I'd see her tending her roses, the very ones she used to claim were being polluted by the goat stables. She didn't wave. Neither did I. But the hostility had faded. Once, after a bad storm, I saw a branch had crushed part of her trellis. I sent my handyman up the road the next morning with spare wood and a nail gun. No thank you note came. That was fine. Sometimes dignity looks like not taking credit. But just when I thought the book had closed, something unexpected happened. One Sunday, about 6 months later, I walked outside to find a small wooden crate at my gate. Inside, a stack of gardening books, an unopened bag of rose feed, and a letter tucked neatly on top. You were right about the road. You were right about the fence. I thought I was keeping the world out. But all I really did was wall myself in. KD. No signature. But this time, that silence didn't feel like retreat. Felt like surrender. and maybe the first brick removed from her inner wall. That night, as I sat on my porch sipping sweet tea, the goats bleating gently in the background, I realized something. This wasn't just a story about fences or roads or land rights. It was a story about boundaries, about what happens when you try to control everything, especially people, and about how sometimes the hardest thing in the world is letting go of the fight. It was late autumn when I saw her again. I was out fixing a section of the pasture fence, hammering in a loose plank, when I heard cautious footsteps behind me. I turned and there she stood, Karen, dressed plainly, hands clasped in front of her like she was holding her breath. "I didn't mean to interrupt," she said softly. I set the hammer down and waited. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, but in presence. There was no perfume cloud, no sunglasses, no clipboard of violations. Just Karen, raw and real. "I came to ask if you'd be willing to sell the road back to me," she said after a pause. "I understand if the answer's no." I thought about that. Not the legal mess, not the drama, but what it had cost me. Not in land or money. In peace, in time, in dignity. "I'm not interested in selling," I said gently, "but I'm willing to talk about shared access. Legally documented. No more fences. No more tricks." She nodded slowly. "That's fair." Then she did something I never expected. She said, "I'm sorry." Just that. Nothing more. No excuses. No twisting of the facts. No word salad to make herself feel better. And that moment, it did something. It didn't erase the damage, but it cracked something open in both of us. A few months passed. Karen hired a real surveyor to adjust her property line and removed the rest of the illegal fence herself. One board at a time. I watched her do it, sweat and dirt streaking her face, without ever asking for help. The community started seeing her differently. Not forgiving exactly, but softening. She stopped chairing committees. She stopped sending emails in all caps. Instead, she started planting a public garden near the church, donated old books to the town library, volunteered for the animal shelter, even came to one of our goat rescue open days. She didn't stay long, just stood by the fence, watching a child giggle as a baby goat nuzzled his hand. Then she slipped away, but I saw her smile, and that was something. "There's one more thing I haven't told you." A week ago, Jonah called from college. "Grandpa," he said, "I think about that summer all the time, about how you handled it." "Poorly," I joked. "No, with restraint, with class, with patience." He paused, then said, "I'm writing my ethics paper about it." I chuckled. "You're making your petty grandpa the star of your moral philosophy class?" "Not petty," he said. "Human." That word stuck with me. Human. Because that's what this story was in the end. Not a tale of winners and losers. Not good guys versus villains. Just people. Messy, scared, proud, wounded people trying to stake their claim on the world in ways they think will protect them. Sometimes that means building fences. Sometimes that means buying roads. But sometimes it means learning when to take the wall down. Now, every time I walk by the gate, I leave it unlocked. There's no need to keep it shut anymore. I even replaced the old wooden sign with a new one, weathered oak, carved by hand, right next to the pasture entrance. It says, "The road we fight over is rarely more important than where it leads." And now I ask you, when someone crosses the line, how far is too far to push back? Is justice only real when it hurts? Or does true resolution require something deeper like grace? And if someone tries to rebuild what they've broken, would you let them? Tell me what you think. Because the line between right and wrong is often narrower than we think. And sometimes, it looks a whole lot like a fence.